This episode was recorded live at the National UDT-SEAL Museum at Fort Pierce, Florida.
Now man, that bottle's my kryptonite, brings a man still down to his knees.
All right. We're happy to have Rick Kaiser here today. And he's Executive Director of the East Coast SEAL Museum, retired SEAL enlisted. We'll emphasize that a little bit later. Dev Group, Superstar, Black Hawk Down Battle. Obviously, this man has had a lot of experience. And today I'm just going to turn over to him to share what he's doing now. And we can talk about what he did before, but it's just going to be a one-on-one brotherhood, having a little bit of a chat. Rick, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty, very much. This is actually my last day as the CEO of the National Navy SEAL Museum, and I'm turning it over to Admiral retired Tim Szymanski. He's going to take over as the CEO, and I will take over the Florida organization as the executive director of this museum. So it's been quite the experience, because my job for the last couple of years has been to build a museum out in California and San Diego, and we opened that one up on October the 4th. So we are now nationwide, right, in Florida and San Diego. So it's been quite the challenge, and I'm looking forward to getting back here to Florida full time and focusing all my energies right here, because this is the birthplace of the Navy SEALs, right? So back in World War II, they weren't Navy SEALs. They were Naval Combat Demolition Units, right? And Scouts and Raiders and OSS Maritime Swimmers. So a lot of those guys, or all the NCDU guys trained here, some of the OSS guys trained here, and most of the Scouts and Raiders trained right here in Fort Pierce on the grounds where this museum is built. So that's why it's so important to us in our history and heritage. And that's my job to preserve that, right? So what our mission here has really changed, right? From preserving the history and heritage of the Navy SEALs, which is always going to be our mission. But what we've noticed in the last, let's say 5 years, is that the people, the public, don't have a lot of experience with the military, or who we are, or what we do, or what we stand for, honor, courage, commitment, sacrifice, that kind of thing. And that has now become our main job, is to teach that not only to young people, but to all ages, right, that walk in here, because there's 1% of the people in this country are military. So it's really been a challenge to kind of shift our gears from just taking care of SEALs and their families to SEALs and their families and the rest of the country. So that's my job.
Well, I'll tell you, it's very impressive. We were talking earlier. I came here several years ago with my daughter to an event like today. And I got to tell you, from what you guys have done outside and inside is absolutely impressive, and it's a tribute to your work. And I'm sure the same thing's it's gonna be the same example out there in San Diego as well.
Absolutely. You know what, they call it a SEAL team for a reason, right? It's not just Rick Kaiser. I have a whole team behind me that have helped me make this, including a good friend of mine, Master Chief Ken Corona, that's been with me for the last 40 years. And I asked him to come back to work here at the museum. He was in retirement. And I said, I need some help. Can you please come back? He goes, I'll give you a year. So his time's running out in December. We're going to miss him. But it's that kind of teamwork that makes this all happen, right? And obviously the gracious donors that, give us money to expand what we do. They know we have great programs here. We have Trident houses, where respite houses, basically, where guys can come and stay for free, visit the museum, bring their families, reconnect, that kind of things. We have a canine program. We give dogs, service animals to vets that need it. We have a big scholarship program. Last year, we gave over $500,000 away to K through 12, because what we noticed is we try not to step on other charitable organizations. And a lot of them give out college scholarships. So we said, what's the next need? And that is K through 12, because you got these guys all over the country and the world that have to put their kids in private school just to get them educated, and we help them out with that. And then we have a big family support program where all sorts of weird things come up, and they just need some financial help. Everything from like sending a kid to a special school that has autism to, sometimes funeral expenses, stuff, hurricanes, you never know. So, that's what we do here at the museum, because the museum keeps itself open, right? Through admissions and selling T-shirts and muster, and but all our fundraising and that goes to all our programs. So it's a challenge, because as a retired SEAL after 34 years of service, I didn't know a damn thing about running a museum, right, or a business.
Yeah.
But luckily, the team again comes in, and we have a lot of great non-SEALs, businessmen that have helped me along the way. So
It's interesting. You mentioned team swim buddies. These are concepts that the younger generation really doesn't quite grasp or understand. How do you see that as you bring on the new generation of SEALs? That the millennials or whatever. In my background, those who seek to do this are all cut from the same cloth. But how do you what's your thoughts about that? The new generations and
I think the new generation has it a lot harder than we did. Like when I went through, you're prized for your shooting skills and just your toughness and your ability to swim and run and do that stuff. Now it's all that plus they have to be technically savvy in computers and fly drones and do all sorts of other stuff. So what I think is really good is that buzz hasn't changed, right? It hasn't. But what they do is they teach a young man that comes in how to be a team, how to be a teammate, how to be a swim buddy, that they weren't used to it. And it's still the same, since probably day one back here in Fort Pierce in World War II, right? They teach you how to trust each other, and that's where the brotherhood starts. So that's what I think is still going on today.
Well, I think that's very important, and of course, as that is passed down to the next generation and next generation, hopefully, obviously, that, and I've also just thinking out loud, I've seen that in leadership speeches, and they talk about obviously ex-SEALs, commanders, and when you give a presentation, the concept of swim buddies over and over again. And I don't think the general public really doesn't understand kind of like what that means. Your comrades in misery initially. There's a lot of misery going on, and just shared misery, and then you get through it, and there's a bond, and of course, you combat that happens, and that's a whole different sort of misery.
Absolutely. So you're going to be interviewing a lot of team guys today. So the one thing that's not indisputable is that the hardest class was class 109. So if you ask them that, they should be able to tell you that, right? That was my class. But one of my jobs here when you're speaking about SEALs and how to teach them about history and heritage is like when I went through BUDS, everybody carries around an IBS, it's a rubber boat on your head for 6 months, right? And you were like, this really sucks. Your hair falls out your head and it's just your neck hurts. And you're like, why are we doing this? Other than that, it's very torturous, right? So until you get here to the museum and you realize that that's what boats these guys used in World War II to carry the explosives across the beach to blow up the obstacles so we could have the D-Day invasion, there's a reason for it. And unfortunately, like I said, when I was going through, they didn't teach us that, right? So my goal, especially now with the California Museum open, is every trainee that goes through BUDS will also go through the museum. And so at least they'll have an understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing some of this stuff that started right here in Fort Pierce 80 years ago.
Well, that's a great concept because obviously a young man joins the Navy, and he says, I want to be a SEAL. But has he ever read any history of what the SEALs are about?
Right.
Obviously the attraction's there. The standards are there. I want to be a Green Beret. I want to be a SEAL. Right. Okay. What do you know about it? Right. What do you know about the history and how it transitioned from then to today? And you just said it. The whole war in Ukraine and Russia, drone warfare has catapulted that technical side of things and the special ops community way beyond what we thought it would be like. Every team has drone operators or capability. In fact, I'll let you share the when we talk about misery. Back in the day, if we're doing a recon, we're crawling for miles, laying still, being miserable, watching a target. Now, you can fly a drone and fly it over and get a good look. But at the same time, I believe there's still the human. You need to have human eyes on it to discern the demeanor of the crowd, the demeanor of the male-aged occupants at one end of the village where no one talks to. But the whole technical aspect for special ops is shooting way forward.
So I remember I was part of a task force ranger in Somalia in '93, and they had actually mounted a big camera on one of the little birds. to take video overhead as we were doing things, right? And we thought that was just the best of all technology, right? And I think about that now, and it's like this big camera that was mounted on the helicopter, a real helicopter, and now they have little drones that are this big, and the guys just launch them and they watch it on their little watch it, and it's just yes, it's crazy. So that's the challenge for all the new SEALs. They still got to be tough, they still got to be great shots, and they got to do all this other stuff. So
well, normally there's also a standard in the special ops community and SEALs in particular is that you don't bring in dummies. They're usually pretty smart fellas. And besides being tough, there's a certain capability to acquire different skill sets, to bring on new information, and adapt to it, and apply it to obviously the mission.
Absolutely. One of my big worries is how they recruit young SEALs now. So they only take the best of the best, right? But the best of the best in what respect? Yes, they can run fast. Yes, they can swim fast. They can do a lot of push-ups, but does that make a good SEAL? And that's what I was talking about, the tough factor that nobody can measure, right? So when they produced SEALs in Vietnam, do you think they were worried about their run and swim times? No, they were just creating tough bastards that would go out and fight and do their job. And I'm afraid, by making it based on physical ability, we're missing out on a lot of great people, right? And we'll see how that all works out in the next, 10, 20 years, because like when I was in, I think the average age or the average in time for a guy was like 14 years. And I don't know what it is today, but I know it's less than that, because I think guys get their SEAL thing on, and then they get out and go out and do great things in society, which there's nothing wrong with that. But we lose a lot of experience because they don't have that mindset. I'm going to stay in for 20 years, or I'm going to stay in for 30 years, or I'm just going to keep doing this because I love it.
Yeah. I want to circle back. You were talking about, obviously, the museum helps families, helps those in need, helps the transition. And you see it in the news, the public eye. How are we doing it? I know guys like you and men like you and from the various special ops community put a focus on taking care of our not just our soldiers and our sailors, but the families, because you and I both, the families take more trauma.
Yep.
I was in, obviously my background speaks for itself, where you disappear for months. You don't know where you're at. The family's there trying to make do. And then when something happens, all they do is get the bad news and they're lost. But how do you think we're doing? Well, I know that special ops community in particular with SEALs and special forces and are trying to do a lot of work, Warriors Haven, and helping our servicemen. But I still think there's a lot to be done.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as I've been here at the museum now for 12 years, and I think the biggest problem in our industry, when I talked about 501c3s, not charitable organizations, there are like 50 Navy SEAL charitable foundation, 50, right? Our problem is just in our group, in my opinion, is that we don't work together well enough. You know what I mean? And that's what I've been trying to bridge that gap, but it's really hard because they're SEALs and others that they're, A personalities, and they don't want to work with anybody else. But everybody's poaching off everybody's donors. And that's why as a museum, we're kind of different because hopefully we're not a threat to them. You know what I mean? We're a museum. This is our job. Yes, we have brick and mortar museum. Our main job is to entertain and take care of our people and the public. And then we do this on the side, and we try not to touch, step on anybody's toes, right? Because that's not our job to run programs to, like canines, for example. There's not another SEAL organization anyway that gives away canines that I know of. And if there is, give me a call and we'll work together, because it's not my job to be the canine group, right? So we just basically saw a need and expanded to what our mission was, right? So that's how it works.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I was just about to ask you about the canine program, because we've all worked for our dogs overseas, and they're special animals. And of course, we all know what happens. Like our soldiers, when they're done, you're out there. You're on your own. But I'm glad. Could you talk a little bit about that canine?
Yeah. So like I said, it's a needs based, right? So what we found is our guys, when I say our guys, special forces guys, are comfortable with certain breeds that they've worked with on the battlefield, and those breeds happen to be Belgian Malinois and Dutch Shepherds, right? So if a guy comes in and says, "I want a Labradoodle," we're like, "Yes, we'll get you whatever you want." But what we've done is probably 75-80% of the dogs we've given out have been the Dutch Shepherds and the Malinois. Now, these aren't killer dogs. We're not giving them a protection dog that bites people for a living. It's a pet, but it's also a service dog. And the whole thing is, it listens and follows directions, and it's the guy's partner, because the guy's suffering. It's another tool in the box, right? It's a guy suffering PTSD, TBI. They can focus on something other than themselves, right? They have a dog now, right? And that dog needs them to take care of them, right? And then they take care of each other, right? And the program has been very successful. We've had a couple of guys have to give their dogs back just because they couldn't handle it, and everybody's, having whatever drinking problems or whatever. So we work with them to the best of our ability. We're not a PTSD, TBI service organization. We just recognize that some people could use a dog to help them out, and it's worked out really well for us. I think we've given away 35 dogs in the last couple of years.
Where do their dogs come from?
They come from Baden Canine in Ontario, Canada. So we've been working with that group for 12 years.
So you get them? Are they trained already?
They are trained, ready to go when the serviceman gets them. So we go through a process, a vetting process, to make sure that they're ready for this and their family's ready for it, because it's a commitment, right? Because we're just not throwing dogs at people, right? And we take them for like home studies, and then they finally get their dog, and then we have a continuing education program here at the museum, so they can come back and learn different training techniques, see how other guys are doing with their dogs, and then the whole camaraderie thing. They get together and they can talk and be
those
themselves.
Breeds are very special.
Yeah.
And you guys, it's like ex-soldiers and sailors. You better keep them busy, because if they're idle, it's going to be a problem.
You're right. You'll see a couple of them roaming around the museum today. So, but these are nice ones, right?
Yeah. I went through a period of time where a bored Marty is a bad Marty. So it keep me engaged, and I'll be fine. Yeah. But there's going to be issues if I'm sitting around bored thinking too much. Then the little adventuresome side's going to come out. Yeah. So I'm sure, particularly with those breeds, they're amazing. For sure.
When I was at Dev Group and Ops Department, it was one of my jobs, which I hated, was writing reports on dog bites, right? Every week, every single week, something happened, right? Whether it was the trainer, whether it was the handler, whether it was the role players, these dogs would get at them, even with muzzles on, because they love that, right? So it's like, but it sucked right in the reports every time. It's like, and then you just have to say how to mitigate it, right? And it's like, well, you mitigate it because we get rid of the dogs, but that's not going to happen, right? So it's like we just have something we have to live with. But I always felt bad for the role players, right, that are being hostages or whatever, and because they always got bit, so they never nobody volunteered to do that job when they knew the dogs were going to be coming, right?
Oh yeah, because they're once they're on go, they're on go.
Yeah. Even if they didn't get bit, the dogs can still hurt you, as you know, with a muzzle on. Yes.
Yeah, that's. I don't think a lot of people see that. They see guys running with a padded shoes and the muzzle dogs and say, "Oh." But if you look at how they fall and how they get hit by these dogs, it's not simulated.
Yep,
it's not simulated.
So, like I said, whatever the guy wants, we actually have given out a border doodle.
A border doodle?
A border doodle. The guy wanted a good friend of mine wanted a border doodle, and he lives out in Utah, and we got him one. So whatever you want. We've done black labs, but like I said, mostly the.
Well, for the audience, we're not making fun of any Labrador lovers or doodle lovers, but we are a little bit in the. Let's just say we're on the A spectrum here. Alpha males. We go with the shepherds and the
No, actually, I have 2 border collies. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're smart. Aren't they considered like?
They're very smart.
very
Yeah,
smart.
it's like it's having a kid on ADHD all the time, right?
Yeah.
So
Better keep them focused.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so how do you? Okay, we got a museum on the West Coast, museum on the East Coast. Do you
Yes.
see a third somewhere in the works? But
No.
obviously you're going down into the sunset. I'm focusing.
No, but
here.
yeah, I'm going to focus here. There's always plans for expanding, right? So it's just all based on obviously money, right? So fundraising has been a challenge because it's just is the way it is in the country right now. But with having these 2 museums open, regardless of what happens with the Navy SEALs 20 years from now, who knows? Maybe they'll have one special force, 20 years from now. There still will be a Navy SEAL museum on both, and they'll be able to keep open just by telling our story.
Well,
That's the goal.
I mean, just my personal opinion, having one, obviously West Coast, which is the center activity for SEALs and training, and having here, obviously where it all started.
Yeah,
those are 2 points where you just, to me, that says it all right there.
Yeah, because there's talk about, hey, we should have one in Virginia Beach, and I'm like, going, well, it's not going to be me. I'm good right
there
here.
There is one in Virginia Beach, a bunch of old guys.
Exactly.
Oh, a bunch of old guys who look kind of tough.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
That's interesting. And as we transition, I mean, today, I was just thinking about it. Back, a few years ago, you want to recruit. We had 9/11. You had a war going on, and you had recruits. People want to sign up. Today, just thinking in general, as you look at it from your time and experience with the Naval Special Warfare, how do you think the recruiting, what attracts young men, patriots are patriots, but obviously the generation is a little different. What's the best way to get?
So I think the notoriety of the SEALs it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, you guys like writing books.
Oh yeah, everybody writes a book, right? So it's a double-edged sword. So on the recruiting side, that all helps, right? Yeah. There's no problem with recruiting of SEALs because there's books and movies out there, and there's young men that say, that's what I want to do, right? But on the other hand, right, we're supposed to be in the shadows, and that does not help that. So it's just a matter of balancing that. But right now, I don't think there's any issues whatsoever with recruiting.
Yeah,
I think there's too many people that want to get them in. The attrition rate's still the same as it's been for the last 80 years, right? So, 80%-ish, 75-80% still drop.
They say the young generation is not in shape and all of that. But
not true. Actually, I think it was 80% of the youth, 18 to 24, can't qualify to get in the military. That's 80%.
That's scary.
That is scary, right? So I guess your statement was true. They are out of shape. Or there's some other issue, whether it be drugs or whatever, but 80%. So then of the last 20%, how many of those want to be a SEAL?
And put up.
Exactly. So it's definitely a calling.
From my background, the guys who usually succeeded in it, I mean, again, you can be a great physical specimen, but if your mind's not right and your misery level's not there and your loyalty to your swim buddy's not there, that's going to be a problem. You can be a great physical specimen, but historically, when I've seen some of the selection programs, the guys who did pretty good came in with a bit of an advantage because of just they were wrestlers and swimmers. It seemed to be that they could understand the concept better.
Yeah, I think the mental toughness, like I mentioned earlier, is something you can't measure. So they spent millions of dollars on these studies to say, where are we going to recruit SEALs, right? And that there isn't. It was some really goofy answers, but the bottom line is it just depends on how they're brought up, I believe, and who's going to make it. I think what I've noticed is that I'm pretty tall for a 6'3" for a SEAL, and I don't see a whole lot of 6'3" SEALs running around there. They're normally smaller, bulkier guys, right? So I guess I was just a freak, but even today, even more so, I see that. So the average guy that I see now, the active duty guy, they just have the same bulk, same everything. And I don't know why that is. It's just kind of
the same
crazy.
thing. It's SF. The whole spec ops community is very
Yeah.
similar. Every now and then you have an anomaly, but they're an anomaly.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm an anomaly, but anymore anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're an anomaly.
Yeah.
You know, given your experience and your contribution to the nation and your sacrifice.
Oh, it's not. I don't see. I never consider it. I always uncomfortable when somebody thanks me for my service because I never considered it service. Right? It was like I loved it. Right? So I'm very grateful, and I say thank you, but it doesn't. It kind of makes me uncomfortable.
I totally agree. I feel awkward if someone brings up my background or something like that and say thank you for your service. I'm like, it was a blast.
Yeah, exactly.
I serve my country, yes, and they say, and I'll often get the question, and I'm sure you can speak to this, is what do you miss? What do you miss about it? And I tell people, the camaraderie, and the men and the women that you work with is special. That's the part you miss.
I say it's a laser focus on the mission is what I miss, right? Because everybody in that team is working towards one goal, and there's no question about what it is. And it doesn't exist outside of that, right? What I don't miss is all the traveling. You know what I mean? And we don't stay in like nice places, and it's usually pretty crappy food. And I don't miss any of that, but I do miss the people. I miss the mission. And that's what helps me, survive here at the Navy SEAL Museum, because I see SEALs and all sorts of people every day, right? Every single day. So it's always reconnecting and talking about old stories and and how we can help in the future. So it's the same kind of mission.
Well, this weekend is going to be a special weekend, and I'm sure you're going to be some of those experiences that you're going to be walking right through yet again.
Yeah. So this is our muster weekend, which is our Veterans Day celebration. So for you non-Navy guys out there, muster means that you muster up, form up in the back of the ship to get word of the day from the captain of the ship, right? That's a muster. So that's what we call this. This is our 40th anniversary here at Fort Pierce. We've been open for 40 years. A lot of people don't realize that. And we're going to celebrate those 40 years tomorrow, starting with a big demonstration at 11 o'clock, where we kind of go through the history. So we'll start out with a bunch of young men, the Sea Cadets, that look very similar to the NCDU guys back 80 years ago, carrying like a rubber boat, and then we walk it through, and then we bring out World War II, and then we bring out Vietnam, and then we bring out Global War on Terror, and then so it's all that history that only we have at the Navy SEAL Museum. So I'm looking forward to it.
When I came up, I drove up today. I went outside working and all of this, and you can see the older guys. You can immediately identify those are Navy men.
Yeah.
And the young lads, the Sea Cadets. You can see their focus and their discipline as they're running around, organizing everything.
Yeah.
And it looked again, as you said, it's all focused around here at the museum. One team, one fight.
Yeah, we'll have about 150 Sea Cadets here, and those kids break their backs to help us. We couldn't do it without them, and it's really something to be proud of. You know what I mean? People, say the youth today, whatever, blah, blah, blah. These kids are squared away. And if our kids in our future are like that, we're not going to have an issue. And you'll see them tomorrow, march out on the field. And it's pretty neat.
Well, Rick, thank you. Thank you very much for your time today. And obviously wish you the best of luck for this weekend. And I hope it's a very memorable experience.
Thank you very much. I'm getting ready to go to a board meeting. So if I
enjoy that pain.
Yeah, so I have to get
all right.
I'm getting my gloves on.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.